interesting on if you don't have that foundation, whenever you do have that freedom, it's like, well, here's a blank page. What are the values that you start with? And if you're alone in a room without any input, what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah, and I related to my students as well. As I said, I've been in a position where, as my predilections are toward high modernism, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's the arena in which I like to practice. But I have been asked by clients to do things that are, hyper traditional. And
Mm-hmm.
I have told both my clients and my colleagues and my students that I feel like I can design anything. Just
Mm-hmm.
give me the parameters and if I have to, and I was actually excited about doing the research of, uh, looking at the work of McKim Eden White and really studying it deeply and understanding
Exactly.
that, and then trying to apply that to a project. So
Exactly.
there's something that I was passionate about in emulating um, a I don't want to necessarily call it a style, but emulating an era in architecture that I studied McKim Eden White both as an undergraduate and a graduate in my postgraduate work too. That it's if you diagram it, some of the work that they did, like the University Club in New York, is a brilliant building. I mean, it's got the cortile
Mm-hmm.
in the center of it. It stacks very nicely. It's very proportional. As a planning exercise, whether or not you like the facade from the traditional aspects of it, the planning of it is brilliant and beautiful and elegant. And so you can't just say that the work of McKim and White should be slid aside because it's not Corbusier. There are aspects that you obviously can learn from every different era in architecture, and you hold on to it. And so if you have a client that comes to you and says, "I really want a traditional building," do you walk away from it? If you're Howard Roark, you probably would. And if you're Keating, you would say, "Well, I'll do this for you." And if you're Michael Borg, you say, "Well, I want to learn how to do this kind of building because I really don't do it all that much, and I want to
Exactly.
experience this." And you're not compromising your values because you only see the world in one way. You're
Yeah.
looking at it as an exercise to deliver something at the very highest level, highest quality. Just
Exactly.
stylistically, you're doing it differently than what your own individual predilections are. So are you saying that you're compromising yourself as an architect to do that? And so I threw that out to the students, let's have a discussion about that. That's,
Yeah.
interesting.
And it all seems to quite depend on how you go about that neoclassicism or neo whatever, and to truly pay homage and do it appropriately versus what's really spelled out in the book and the movie of it's a hodgepodge with a BS facade with pie or just with everything being quite out of scale and just thrown on there versus it actually being erected out of the ground and really being
Well, but I think the
historical.
difference there so Rem Koolhaas said that, the skyscrapers in New York were fascinating because they had they had great bases and they had elongated trunks and really interesting tops, and they didn't really work because they were trying to be something that should have only been 5 stories, and they were trying to
Mm,
make and so what I'm talking about is, a client coming to me and not asking me to do a 50-story building that looks like a McKim Eden White building. I'm talking about something that is a 3-story building or 4-story building
yeah,
that is emulating that kind of art, stylistic architecture.
yeah,
And and I'm totally okay of doing that, but to try to do that on a 50-story building, I would tell the client, no, that's not appropriate.
yeah.
And I probably would walk away from a commission like that.
because at a certain sense, it's basically an Italian palazzo that's been stretched up, and
Right.
that's not the point of all of those proportions.